our host for the evening. And I'm going to start with Gabe Medina. Gabe, would you like to kick things off, share a bit about yourself and what your community is experiencing?
Yeah. Hola, everybody. My name is Gabriel Medina Martin Ruiz, but you could call me Gabe for short. Don't memorize that full thing, I tell folks. And I am the first Green elected to the Pajaro Valley Unified School District School Board, defeating a incumbent Trump Republican. And one of the things that I feel really propelled me is the proximity to my community that I grew up in, which is a mixed status community that consists of immigrants from many different areas, but mainly indigenous areas of Mexico. So we are no longer seeing this big wave of Spanish speakers like we were
Bigger?
back in the 80s and
No,
90s.
it's your one. It's
Instead,
the
we're
blueberries.
actually seeing mixed languages coming from indigenous places of Mexico, like Mixteco, Triqui, and Nahua as well. So this has been greatly impacting my community over here in South Santa Cruz, North Monterey County. A lot of my parents and constituents do work in the field as campesinos and farm workers. So they're really feeling the pressure and the fear right now of immigration, not only for themselves, but mainly also for their students, especially with this rhetoric about, not allowing folks to be U.S. citizens if both their parents are immigrants. So there's a lot of fear right now, but the one thing that we're really trying to do is form coalitions that protect our community. So we have YAR and the Monterey Solidarity Response that I'm really in touch with. And every time we see a report on ICE or ICE adjacent folks coming in, we try rallying. I'm pretty sure most of you heard about that event that happened off San Juan Road in Monterey County where they raided the cannabis farms. And I was one of the only elected officials out there to really question them and ask them, like, hey, what's going on? How are you talking to the campesinos that are here? Are you going after the owner who clearly messed up? And how are you processing these people? Are they even being processed? And just having that presence there really put them on their toes. So I'm here because me and Sean have always talked about immigration, and it's something that's really impacting, especially California 19, since we're such a big agricultural district. So that's a little bit about me. I'm excited to be here and answer any questions that I can, and to really just amplify Sean and the platform that he's really bringing to the people, especially around immigration. So thank you all.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for showing up. This is my second time running against Jimmy Panetta. This is probably everyone in this room already knows this, but this is a very exciting campaign, and that this was the strongest federal campaign in the 2024 cycle. Jimmy Panetta, if he's not already, should be scared of us. Democrats, especially establishment Democrats like him, are historically unpopular. We've never seen polling data showing Democrats with such low approval ratings, and it is because of people like Jimmy Panetta. It's because of establishment Democrats like Jimmy Panetta that Trump has been elected, because the Democrats are supposed to be the party of the people, but instead they're serving their donors. Jimmy Panetta has been talking about ICE. Sometimes he'll send out newsletters where he postures as if he's against ICE. But when he had an opportunity to vote on a resolution that was supporting ICE, he voted in favor of it. So he supported a resolution that was praising ICE for protecting our country. And more recently, he must have gotten some pushback from that, some heat. More recently, he put out a vertical video, a so-called vertical video, a TikTok style video where he was standing in front of an ICE detention center and was trying to have it both ways. He was trying to say, I have my eye on these people, and yet he wouldn't condemn the technique of detaining the immigrant population. And I want to make it very clear that my campaign is against ICE. My campaign is for abolishing ICE. And that sounds like extremist or radical rhetoric, but it's not an extreme position. According to polling data, polling data shows that a supermajority of Democrats support abolishing ICE. So this is a very reasonable thing for us to say as a campaign, and we are going to say it as a campaign. Uh, Prisons and policing is not the way. And a lot of the American public was in favor of mass deportations when Trump first took office. Now that they've seen what that looks like, now that they've seen what a horror show that is, they're not in favor of it anymore. And I think that this is going to stick. This isn't going to be one of those things that can be brushed aside with rhetorical tricks. People, it's just like with Gaza. People have seen the horror show with their own eyes, with the phone videos, and they're not going to be tricked. And so we can press hard on serious reform in the immigration system. You know, they've been talking about reform to the immigration system for decades now, but I think we can actually do something now. And one other thing that I want to make sure that we talk about tonight, and I think that we will under under Ashley's guidance, but why do we have all these refugees? Most people don't want to leave their communities. Most people don't want to leave their families. And I think that much of it is because of us, because of our federal government. And when I say us, I don't mean the people in this room. I know the people in this room don't support it, but below the southern border, we're overthrowing governments and we're trying to cripple governments with sanctions. And so we need to talk about at the federal level, what policies can we enact to stop this madness, to take our boot off the neck of these countries to the south of our border. So I hope that we have time to visit that. It's a really complicated topic. It really is. And we don't have time to get into all of it. But Ashley's done a great job of laying out a sequence of questions and leaving some time open for Q&A. So I think we're gonna at least hit the highlights. So Ashley, take it away.
Yes, actually, we will. That's where we're going to start is with the root cause.
And where do we start, Ron?
Yeah, yeah,
Right. Before
Yeah.
we get into it, I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's not just people coming from countries south of our border that
Yes.
are impacted by ICE and by our immigration policies. It's all around the world. And in fact, before our campaign kickoff, we were talking to a person who represents the Muslim American community, and they were talking about how ICE was coming into mosques.
Yep.
So it's important to acknowledge that. Like today is probably going to be mostly focused on the communities that are the farming communities, I think. But that's not all that we need to talk about. And I don't want to give the impression that we don't care about those other communities. I think that it's lost in most of the conversation that we have as a country that unilateral economic sanctions are in violation of international law. You wouldn't know it from the way that our members of Congress talk about it or that our presidents talk about it, but we're actually not supposed to do that. Economic sanctions should be through the United Nations. Economic sanctions should be approved by the Security Council. And I have some criticism of the Security Council, don't get me wrong, but economic sanctions, that's basically siege warfare. And we're using that in violation of international law to try to bend these other nations to our will. We're trying to, Venezuela, I think, is a really prime example where we've, through a variety of techniques, tried to overthrow that government, like Juan Guaido, right? We tried to just like impose a new president on them. And I don't know, did we try to assassinate Hugo Chavez? It's been a while. I don't even remember what we tried to do. But so there have been these like regime change operations, but then there was also just the crippling economic sanctions, similar to what we've done to Cuba. And as I was saying, like these are illegal. And so I think that what we should be doing, what our representatives in the federal government should be doing, is insisting that our country obey international law. International law, by the way, that our country largely defined shortly after World War II. So let's just comply with the law that we've created. And that's the issue I am mostly fired up about. So let me hand it off to Gabe. Gabe, what would you like to say?
I mean, yeah, I think if we limit what the CIA could do outside of the United States, that would be, a way that we could stop these mass migrations. Because if you look at what happened in Guatemala when the CIA overthrew, um, oh my gosh, I forgot his name, but they overthrew him in 1954, and then that caused mass migration over to the United States because it did destabilize the entire country. And when you do that, especially the person that was in charge was democratically elected. I believe his daughter wrote House of Spirits. I forgot her name, but she was the one that had to deal with the repercussions of leaving her country, right? Forming a new one over here in the United States. And she was a direct impact of the CIA being involved in that country and destabilizing it. And then if you just move a little bit further up north, we see El Salvador, Guatemala, all these other countries that have had U.S. imperialism and some sort of coup that's been come up in order to destabilize the country. Because the one thing America loves doing in Central and South America is if there is a resource, they will have these big corporations go mine that resource and protect it at all cost. That's what happened with the banana company that we saw, right? Who pretty much the country tried getting them out, but the US said, oh, this is a threat to our economy. And they went in masses and destabilized that country. So I think our own, groups that we form, like the CIA, who are pretty much given the task to go out there and do this without actually seeing the repercussions that it will have, not economically, but in terms of migration. And then those people travel over here for the American dream. And what happens as soon as they get here? It's the American nightmare now. It's not the same as it once used to be. So I think those are ways that, we could address that, is just making sure that we are aware of what is going on under our watch, and making sure that if we do want these economic trade-offs that are beneficial for both countries, that we're not dominating one and then protecting our interest over the interest of that country.
What policies do you think could help address the influx of refugees?
I mean, bring back USAID. Like, we cut that entire program off, which was being beneficial. Yeah, Sean?
Well, parts of USAID.
Yes, parts
So,
of
like,
USAID.
yeah, because USAID was also a way that we were
Infiltrating.
like we need to be calling for our government to be uh, in conformance with international law, which means none of this meddling. Like, that's part of the UN Charter. We're not supposed to be meddling with the internal affairs of these other countries. And so I think we could say abolish the CIA. Or
Seriously.
the CIA has like two major divisions. There's analysis and there's operations, and the operations, that's where it's really sinister. Let's just say abolish it. The Congress
Yep.
could do that. That's fully within the power of the Congress. And as a member of Congress, I would happily introduce a measure to either strike all of the CIA or strike the operations division of the CIA.
Mhm. Yeah,
Go ahead, Ralph.
well, what Sean just said, was that in response to what policies do you think could help address the influx of refugees? Was that what you were talking to, Sean?
Yeah, mostly, yes.
Okay, well, one thing I want to ask is, I keep hearing about ICE raiding Home Depots and places like this. Not just that, obviously also the strawberry fields and whatnot. But if companies like Home Depot are hiring undocumented workers, that's not fighting the influx of refugees, correct?
Ralph, they're mainly picking up day laborers at these Home Depots.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, not
Yeah.
protecting
They're
them as
there
soon
to
as they
work
run inside.
for the
Yes,
day.
exactly. Because usually
And
you'll see day
mostly,
laborers outside of the Home
yeah, they're
Depot
not
looking for
Home
work.
Depot employees.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay,
So-
sorry.
Danlin, I see
Yeah.
yours. Sorry
Thanks.
about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, just two questions. One thing, you're looking for, sorry, you can hear this. We're kind of like, we have two machines going on here. I'm going to
Hang
move.
on, hang on.
Um,
I'm turning mine off.
Yeah, so, you're looking for like ammunition for thinking about this issue of like where refugees are coming from. My fellow anthropologist, Jason DeLeon, wrote a book that won the National Book Award called Soldiers and Kings, which is sort of like an ethnography of people who are involved in human trafficking, talking
Mm.
about their life histories, what brought them into this, what makes it so hard to get out. And it just gives you a really clear idea, not just like going back to the 50s, but just our recent policies around drugs, like how that has really exacerbated the problem and trapped people into these livelihoods, where it's just really, again, it's just how counterproductive the militarized response to the war on drugs and immigration has been. The other side is like when everyone says, okay, stop refugees. I mean, I completely agree, not meddling in other countries. But in terms of climate change, it's in some ways the cat is out of the bag. Human beings are going to need to move around the planet. The other side is just like another thing that Republicans have been talking about lately is, demographic collapse. It's true in the United States and a lot of places in Europe where birth rates are falling, and the Republican solution is people need to have more babies. But in fact, it's really good for people to be moving around the world right now. And, I care about the world of care in particular, but it's like we have a crisis of labor in this country. So it's like this idea that people coming into the country are a crisis for our economy is in fact precisely the opposite. So I feel like that really needs to be leaned into too, just changing the frame in which we talk about it.
I was just gonna say I love what the previous speaker said, because if you actually look at pre-Columbian migration patterns, natives were consistently moving in order to tend to the climate itself. So as they were moving, right, they were clearing those brushes, they were setting those fires in order to restore the land, and we've completely lost that right now. So I think even bringing back those indigenous practices of climate, right, where we are actually working with the land, not just minding it for resources. So I just wanted to plug that in.
So I was thinking that people need to look into the NAFTA agreement that was put into place in the late 1990s, because not only did it change some of the trade that was going on, but it also changed the subsidies that we pay the corn farmers of the U.S. And the government was subsidizing the U.S. farmers so heavily that the Mexican farmers could no longer compete in a corn market. And that, I think, forces some people as sort of economic refugees to come north. And if we want to look at government waste, or rephrase subsidies in the term of government waste, I mean, I don't see it being a waste to give farmers money for USAID, but to just give them money as a subsidy, I think could be considered a government waste, not by the farmers, of course, but by people like me. And then the other root cause, I've spent some time traveling south of the border, and I'm really amazed about the drug trafficking. And the market is in the US. And what I've spoken with some of my European friends about is our healthcare system contributes to this in the way that we don't address our own addictions. And so I have had family members with addiction problems. One of the things they struggle with is the amount of money that you have to go out of pocket to get into a rehab clinic. In Europe, it's considered a medical issue. Anybody who's ready to leave their addiction can walk into any medical clinic and be like, help me, I'm done. I want to get off of this. And there's no charge. It doesn't cost them thousands of dollars. And then what I saw also traveling south of the border was how much of our medical tourism, people from the US going either to Mexico or to Canada in some cases for pharmaceuticals, for dental work, for surgeries that would be too expensive up here. So it's we're putting a strain on the neighbors in so many ways, but I feel like if you keep pulling that string, you get back to we need a healthcare system that works in the U.S. And we need to look carefully at these subsidies. Why are we paying people in business to stay in business? Maybe it's an outdated business model. I don't really know, but I think NAFTA is a big piece of that that's tangible. Thanks.
This one's difficult because right now we're finding ourselves trying to follow rules that are consistently broken on the other end. So it's difficult right now, I would say. But what do you propose to address the current carceral approach to immigration? I think right now we really just need to be out there and organizing in the streets about what's going on, because just even these current like detention centers, I prefer to call them concentration camps that are happening right now, are horrible. They're privately owned. They lack any resources and are completely inhumane. I think we first need to address like, are we okay with this as a country reinforcing this imagery that we saw in the 40s, right? And I think what's being put out there into the world is horrible. And as somebody who's just even facing this personally with my family, we need to address the fear that's going on right now, because it's also impacting our economy. People aren't leaving their homes. People aren't taking their children to school right now, so we're losing funding in education. So we need to really show people like we're going to organize with our coalitions that are already doing the groundwork and support them. I don't see many politicians that are out there supporting things that are already being done. Instead, a lot of the time, I see a lot of politicians try to recreate something so they could get the credit for it. But I think in this time, we need to expand our coalition in order to protect this community. Um, so organizing, coalition building, and then also getting people like Sean in office so we could have somebody at the table and giving these stories that we're hearing from on the ground, because there's not enough of that going on right now. Or people are even too scared because immigration has always been a controversial thing for both the Republicans and the Democrats. They use this as playing chips all the time, right? Dreamers could have had their status when Joe Biden was in power, but they didn't do that, right? Because immigration is a great way to get Republicans on their side when they want things to pass. So we need a big backbone from our politicians to really direct to to finally address this, because it's been going on for decades. And then Sean, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I would. Wow. So first, I think the most important thing is already happening, and gets to some of what Gabe was talking about, which is that we need to we need to educate people and form coalitions, and it's already happening organically. I think largely thanks to social media. I mentioned this in my opening remarks. You can see it in the survey data. The American people are rapidly turning against this mass deportation strategy. And so I think at an emotional level, at a visceral level, when people see what mass deportation and incarceration looks like, they're horrified and they don't want anything to do with it. So I think a lot of that work is already done in terms of turning public opinion against it. And I mean, we have to keep doing it. I'm not saying that, I don't mean to say the work is done, but I think that's one of the hardest parts, is turning the public against it. And I think we've already won it. And as I said before, I think it is embedded in people's brains, similar to Gaza, was seeing what's happening to the children there. Like this is, we're already done with that. But what I want people to be calling for, at the federal level, people who are members of Congress, I want them to be calling for a defunding of ICE, if not an outright abolition of ICE. And I think that should be our top line bumper sticker demand: abolish ICE. And everybody knows what that means. They attach that to the images that they've seen of these, like, these are basically brown shirt forces. And actually, that's an important point that I meant to make. Like, the term fascism, I think, has been overused in American political discourse, but in this case, I think it actually applies. This is like a paramilitary force. The ICE raids are being conducted by a paramilitary force, and by that I mean that it's not entirely under state control, because they don't have to show badges. So there could be any vigilante that comes in and poses as an ICE agent. So we need to understand that this is like a vigilante slash paramilitary, outside of the government force. This is what fascism is. Um, and so anyway, a lot of Americans understanding that. So a call for abolishing ICE is now mainstream. And so we can just make that demand. And I don't think we have to make a single demand. I think that our biggest demand should be abolish ICE, but we can also support some more moderate bills that have been proposed in the past few years, one requiring ICE agents to show identification. I don't want to center that. Like that's kind of like in our own campaign that'll be off in the fine print. Like, yes, we support that, but that shouldn't be our main demand. And detention centers generally is just not the solution. There are much better ways that we can go about this, switching from incarceration to just some kind of civil enforcement. And well, are we gonna, do we have a section for talking about work visas, Ashley?
Not work visas, but we had a section for abolish ICE.
Oh, well, I mean, that's kind of the section we're in, right? Sorry, no. I lost
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Well, yeah, let's hear from the audience now. Gabe and I have both talked ad nauseum, so.
Hi,
Yes.
Ned.
Hi, I guess my name is under my picture. Uh, so quick feedback. My remarks are coming from a place of wanting this campaign to really win. I really want to wake up in November of 2026 and hear the news that the Dougherty campaign won and we'll have a new congressperson. So in the spirit of that, I have to be careful how to agree or disagree with what I heard today. So we want to be careful about abolishing major and big government agencies. I guess there is a wide base of voters who would disagree with that and will end up losing them. I generally suggest trying to come up with a program rather than just kind of beaming out general policies that sound like more like slogans than programs. So there's a lot of room to improve ICE. ICE is an enforcement agency, and it can be improved. The debate about immigration reform is a big topic, and how to address it in a careful way and understand the impact on votership is key here. And you remember Obama 2X and Bush 2X deported many people, but it was done carefully, and it did not have the optics that we see today from ICE, which are by design just to scare off people from even coming to the U.S. But I would put it in the framework of what can we do to reform ICE. And it's an issue of law enforcement, just like any other law enforcement. So when I hear abolish ICE, it comes across as defund the police. That puts us in a risky category of campaign programs. The same thing with the CIA. I mean, somebody can counter this program by saying, "Hey, there's no country in the world that doesn't have intelligence," and a country like the U.S. cannot live without an intelligence agency. So I would be careful how to address the CIA. And it's very complicated, and there's a lot of unknown issues and complicated issues about the CIA. But I would maybe propose reform agenda for the CIA rather than just telling people, "Hey, I want to abolish the CIA." And going back to the issue of immigration, again, there's a lot of details about it. We're not going to discuss it now, but what I want to mention here is that the Dougherty campaign, again, Sean being a technologist, and he can speak out of a position, I would say a differential position of authority, since he's an engineer and coming from the Silicon Valley. This should be one area where the Dougherty campaign really scores more points than the Panetta campaign. So the kind of reform that we need in immigration, especially in workforce in the Silicon Valley, the most important economic engine in the country. I think the Dougherty campaign can detail a program. You can talk about that later. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you. You have to be careful how to put out what seems to be slogans more than programs. And I'll defer to the rest. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, hi everybody. Fantastic presentations by Sean and Gabe. Just perfect textbook green analysis on immigration foreign policy. And in the beginning, when Sean was talking about Panetta's votes, I kept thinking, boy, I wish that we could have a candidate for him where Sean is able to go up against him. And clearly, he's not going to want to debate you. So then I thought, and I know this is more work, but then I thought, could we cut and paste both what Sean and Gabe have said today in different pieces and splice it into things that Panetta has said and other lead Democrats on immigration? You can make a 10 or 15-minute video like this. It would be kick ass. So I would contribute some money towards that. If you had some staff time to pull something like that together and mix and match videos and make it essentially,
that's
a virtual
cool
debate.
idea. No, that's a cool idea. That's a cool idea.
Thank you. That's a great
debate.
idea.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot.
All right. Great.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, I love videos, so that's my thing.
Yes,
we have the technology. We and the labor.
and the skills on the team.
Great.
Go ahead, Nancy, and then we'll move on to our next topic.
Okay, hi. I'm really fascinated by the opposition and what I'm hearing. I want to respond, if you don't mind, to Sean, what you said about ICE. Yes, I think we're in a situation now that we in our lifetimes have not been in, and you're pointing it out. And what I'm asking, wondering is standing, what Mike said, I felt was more or less where the Democratic Party stands, which is why I left the Democratic Party. And this is a good argument. I'm not saying it's a. I'm just saying a position. I think we are in a very. I think we need to take steps and positions that we perhaps never would have taken before. And Sean, I congratulate you on voicing that. I appreciate it, is what I'm saying. I hope we go in that direction.
Yeah, well, sorry, go ahead, Gabe. You go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna respond too. During the Obama time when mass deportations were happening, that was clearly on our radars as a community. We knew about the deportations. We were organizing against them as well. But it was just limited to what was happening to our community. And that's the thing. We do immigration in silos when it doesn't just impact Latinos. It impacts Black Haitians. It impacts people from the Middle East. It impacts people from Europe, Canada. So this thing spans a lot of places, which is why they met that quota. It wasn't just about going after Latinos at that time. They were going after mass amount of people that were trying to enter the country. So I think there is that feeling within the Democratic Party that Obama wasn't the person that we gave a pass to, and we still not giving him a pass for what he did in immigration. So I think we have to look at different perspectives of those people that were impacted to understand why they want to abolish ICE. Right. And I think that's the lens we need to look at through, not the historical ones, because clearly they haven't worked, which is why we're in the mess that we're in right now. So that's all I wanted to add to that.
Can I add one response to that or not? Sean, you wanted to jump in. I just the reason that my response is more or less what Sean said. We are in a critical time that is not like the times that have happened. They're just we can't define things the same way anymore, is all I'm want to add.
Well, I think that Ned raises an important point when it comes to defund the police, because I do remember when the BLM movement was at its height, when it was so mainstream and everybody was going out to these events. And I remember seeing that the mainstream media turned the debate to the slogan defund the police. And it wasn't about the underlying issues, but there were some really interesting surveys going on at the time that showed that when you didn't say defund the police, but you gave the more specific demands that really were that were defund the police, like we want to put money into social workers, and we want people who are trained in de-escalation to go out and deal with these dangerous disturbed individuals, right? Like don't send a person with a gun, send a person with some training in de-escalation, right? So when you explain to Americans what defund the police was actually calling for, they supported it in strong majorities. And so I think that Ned makes an important point. Like, we should be careful about the language that we use, because the point of my campaign very deliberately goes for an image of what I call Mr. Rogers. Like, I do not aspire to be a radical or to an extremist in the way I present myself. I tried to present myself as a reasonable person looking for common sense solutions. So I think that it may be true that saying abolish ICE turns people off. So we should be calling for the more specific things, like let's not put families in detention centers, right? Let's stop these raids. So I think that's a perfectly valid point. And I think as a campaign, we should certainly consider that, because we don't want to turn people off by using rhetoric that seems like we're just angry extremists, you know.
Yeah. And I think we should just state this. Like, we do need law enforcement to address something. We do need ICE to go after people that are actually criminals and doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So I think we could agree on that. I think just the tactics, the way that they're doing it. So if we can't say abolish ICE, let's say reform ICE, reform policing, right? Because it's not working for the next majority of people that are coming in, right? Because we're seeing even the voter demographics are switching right now, which is why we're seeing a lot of this ICE policing, right? It's also fear that's embedded of losing the majority, right? That, in Chicano Latino history that we're looking at, because the demographics for brown people are going to shift to 34% pretty soon, right? Where we're going to have economic control. And one thing that we're noticing is tactics like ICE, right? Over policing are ways to control and to suppress, right? So that's another way that we have to think about it as well.
Yeah, and I actually would be interested in hearing more people's opinions on how we talk about this issue, because I think my guess would be that almost everyone in this room agrees that we need to stop these brutal tactics, these raids and these detention centers and the family separation. I doubt there's anyone supporting my campaign that is on a different page on that. I think the disagreement is just on the campaign messaging and the rhetoric. So I'd be interested to hear. Yeah, I mean, bumper sticker slogans do have utility. It's right. So we have to find a balance. Bumper sticker slogans are useful when you're trying to get attention on social media. Like, we've been putting some videos on social media, and you only have a few seconds to get attention. So the edgy slogans can be very helpful, but we can also see how they can backfire as well. So this is the kind of thing where I think the campaign could really use some feedback from a variety of perspectives.
Yeah, I'm sorry to speak again. No, I'm interested in the fact that ICE is new. ICE is from 2003. It's post 9/11. Before there was ICE, there was the Customs Service and there was the Immigration and Naturalization Service. Customs Service was about crime. Immigration and Naturalization is about people. It's like you bring these together and you're criminalizing people, right? So, it's not like abolish ICE and there's no such thing as immigration procedures. It's just we go back to the way we used to do it. And I think if you framed it that way,
That's a really
then
great
the message
point.
kind of gets across.
That's really helpful. That's really helpful.
Maybe you want to go ahead and start on this topic.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is really tricky, and something that is surprising to me, or was surprising to me the first time I learned it, was if you look back just a couple of decades, you would see progressive politicians like Bernie Sanders talking about the need to control our borders and to restrict immigration and to control the work visas. That used to be a concern of the so-called left. Organized labor was very concerned about this. People didn't want undocumented workers coming in, working under the table and bringing down wages. And it's kind of been lost in the way that we talk about it now. So I think that there are some legitimate concerns about wages and people working within the system. And when you look at the design of the visa system, at least when I look at it, and I'm not an expert on it, but it looks to me like they were trying to permit migrant workers to come in and help without displacing the domestic workforce. And so, like, when a farm wants to employ workers on visas, they have to demonstrate to the government that they're not preventing or excluding local workers, and that's a lot of what makes it impossible for the farmers, or, well, they would tell you it's impossible. Maybe it's possible. Whatever. This is the complaint, is that it's so hard for them to work through the system, to go through the proper channels, that they end up just sidestepping the system and hiring people under the table, hiring undocumented workers. So I think the design of the system may have come from well-intended people, but it's clearly not working. Like, it's clearly completely broken. So we need to just look at that fact, acknowledge that there were valid concerns. People maybe were acting in good faith in how they designed it, and now we can see the outcome, which is a disaster. And so we need to see, like, can we make it easier for farms to go through the proper channels to hire people working on visas, and which is beneficial also to the migrant workers, because if they're able to easily acquire visas and work through that visa system, then that means that they're protected by the law. That means that they're not going to have these depressed wages. That's going to help the people who are citizens, right? So I think a system that's functioning properly, and where all the laws are actually functioning, that benefits all of us. And that's where we want to get. That's how I see it. I don't know, Gabe, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, America was born on exploitation, right? For our farmlands, in order to reproduce income, right? So I, to better protect our workers is one, I believe that, well, one, we need to bring humanity into our work, because a lot of the people that I represent are farm workers. They get low wages, they're very careful about how they spend, right? But at the same time, they're being taxed on their wages. So it's so interesting when people say that migrant immigrants don't contribute. They actually contribute a lot more than the top 1% who don't pay their taxes, which is wild, right? So immigrant workers, because they're getting low wages, are able to subsidize some of these programs that we have. And now, and you should also hear how the Republicans are talking about this now, because they're being impacted. I remember Trump came out and said, whoa, we're not going to do anything to farm workers and hospitality, right? Well, why is that? Because a lot of immigrants take up these jobs. And now they're walking those talking points back. But at the same time, we're still seeing this mass amount of raids that are happening. So we need to bring humanity. We also need to punish or reprehend the owners, right,
Yeah.
that are using this exploitation to make themselves fat cats. And that's exactly what's happening. So, and also, like, I had to think about this, like, why an immigrant, why target that group to work these types of jobs? Well, guess what? Immigrants don't have the protections like a normal US citizen does, right? I knew a woman who worked in the field and was literally sexually assaulted by the farmer, and she did not come forward because she did not have status. She was scared of being deported, right? So that's the mass amount of control that some of these farm workers have over these people, in the way that they treat them as well. And like I said just recently too, that cannabis farm got raided. There was undocumented workers, but there were also minors who were undocumented working in those fields, right? But no repercussions to the owner, despite them breaking like child labor laws at that point. So I think we need to make sure that the ag, right, or especially since I'm keeping it focused on ag, is paying fair wages and also contributing, because right now they're also causing division between the community. Farm workers need housing, or else because they can't afford to live here in Santa Cruz. In Watsonville alone, a lot of them are moving to King City right now. So they're looking for jobs over there. So I think we need to do that. One, protect the workers. If people are willing to come and work in this economy in America, I think that should be something that we grant. And not deporting people who have been here for like 27 years working laborious jobs that no other demographic would take. So that would be my input on that.
Well, let me just respond to that,
Yeah.
because I I don't want to be misunderstood here. I think that there are a lot of power. There are people in power who like the system as it exists,
Oh,
because
totally.
it creates an easily exploited workforce. So I want to make that very clear. That's my
Yeah,
position.
yeah.
Okay,
That
so
was a given for me. Yeah.
I just want to clarify that yes, I agree with everything you just said, Gabe. What I was trying to get at was that I can imagine that this currently dysfunctional system that we have was designed by well-intentioned people,
Yeah.
but it's not actually been implemented and executed in a functional way. And the people that benefit from that have no reason to change it. I mean, it just
Yeah.
makes me think of how, I mean, this is just the most ridiculous thing, that we can't just look at how our members of Congress vote on something. There's one web page where you find out the bill that they voted on. There's an entirely different web page to find out how people voted. So you can't see how they voted on a given bill. You can't just send a URL to your friend and be like, look at how Jimmy Panetta voted on this horrible resolution supporting ICE. You have to say, here's this URL, and you have to go down and look at this version of the text, and then we'll look over this second URL and look at where, like it's a system that's dysfunctional, but being dysfunctional benefits the people in power. And so I think that that's a lot of what's happening here. So I think that we need to reform the system so that people are better protected. So immigrants are better protected by the system, because we want everybody to working within the system so they have rights and they have protections, right?
And if you
and if we make a reasonable system that people should be able to conform to, then we can really crack down on the farmers, the business owners, right? The ones that are clearly just trying to sidestep the law so that they can make a quasi-slave system, right? Yeah.
With our resources so stretched, how can we cultivate, and I think Sean even put it this way, how can we cultivate a compassionate society without overwhelming our resources? So
Wow,
you guys kick that off, and then you can
who wants
follow
to
up
answer
with the
this
other
one?
I'm curious for others to answer that one. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say one last thing since we switched topics. I just want to say one last thing about the previous topic. The caps on work visas available are dictated by the Congress. So that's an example of something where getting elected to Congress, I could have direct control on better calibrating that system so that it actually makes something functional rather than dysfunctional, getting exploited workforce. So Ashley, did I ask us to have this question? I'm just kidding. Like,
well, yeah,
really
I mean,
it
is a broader question, and it does go into like more of an open forum. But if there are thoughts about it, about resources and things like that, that's part of it. And also how to balance the worker rights while, because jobs is a huge issue, so we can't really avoid it. So how do we have those balance the protections of migrants and and worker rights and safeguarding jobs, like put the connection between the two.
Look, I'll say something about this unless Gabe wants to start.
Go for it.
Okay. So I think that one reason why this is such a big concern is that Americans are really struggling, and the majority of Americans can't meet their most basic needs. So they ask, well, if I as a citizen can't meet my most basic needs, why should the government be helping these other people? And I think that's often how it's framed. And I think that we need to try to reject that framing, and we need to be focused on Americans, and we just need to say, like, we need to get our most basic needs met. Like, never mind what are these immigrants getting? Like, let's get what we need. And that's going to take a while. Like, we don't have Medicare for all. We don't all have health care. We can't all go to college. Who can afford to go to college? So I think that we can focus on those without getting distracted by, I mean, I was only joking earlier when I asked Ashley, why are we asking this question? Like, I actually did ask for this question to be asked, because I think it's an important one. But while we're fighting for these basic programs so that we have our basic needs met, we should also be focusing on those kind of reforms that we were talking about in the previous section, trying to get migrants into the system so that people don't feel like there's this cheating going on. And as Gabe pointed out, like, these migrant workers are paying taxes, so it's not like they're really getting away with anything.
Yeah.
So maybe that's another important way to push back. Gabe, what do you think?
No, I agree with that. I mean, this is something that we're still trying to figure out, right? How do we make this actually work for everybody? And if you look at the history of the US too, like the Chinese Exclusion Act, right? Once the Chinese came in, started tending to the land, then we had the Chinese Exclusion Act. They bring in the Japanese and the Filipino, and then we start deporting them. And recently we had the Bracero program, right? And what happened right after the Bracero program was they started letting immigrants in from Mexico. We had Operation Wetback that followed right afterwards to deport those people back in mass roundups. So it also scares me, like this pattern that I see of, okay, we're gonna call people in, get that cheap workforce. Whoa, they're organizing. Let's get them out. There's this pattern that happens. So I think we need to make, I mean, goodness, I wish that the workers were also getting the profits that they're seeing from the companies. I think that would make it more equal and fair if we move to a non-capitalistic way of thinking, right? Where the means of production is to the workers that are tending to the land. That would be my approach. But again, this is so difficult that I'm still trying to figure out what it is that we could do.
Got a hand raised.
Yes, we do have a hand raised. I also want to note what Nassim wrote. She said the U.S. doesn't have limited resources, uh, limited resource. Billionaires steal wealth from labor and controller laws to avoid paying their fair share. That's very, yes, snaps to that. Okay.
Snaps.
It's really
Yeah.
simple, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we stop buying all the bullshit, it boils down
Yes.
to that.
Yes. Brett, go ahead. I'm still trying to
Yeah.
figure out my view here, so
Oh,
I got your message, but go ahead, please.
yeah. Well, I just think one big part of it is to stop paying government employees to be bullies. Stop hiring people to be bullies. I mean, that is so much of what's happening now, and it just infuriates me. Um, they're putting it, it goes back to the previous discussion about abolishing ICE, really. Um,
The point of these town halls is to help this campaign shape its platform. I know Gabe and I just did a lot of talking. That's not really supposed to be the point of the town hall. The point of the town hall, I mean, we've now told you where we're coming from as a campaign. Gabe is staff on the campaign, but we want to get feedback and we want you to help us shape what we're doing. So now is your chance.
And we have, it looks like Nadia and Nassim. So good to see you both, by the way.
Hey, so me being an immigrant, so we came to this country and we had to get the status. But the time we came in, as we already guys discussed, there was a system in place. And it was fair or not fair. It was a system. We had to go through it. It was an application. And nobody came to, grab us or take us to detention. So things have changed from then. But right now, what I feel like I see is half of what we're seeing is administration trying to fulfill the promises they made to their base. And they are making a havoc out of it. They're making a show, a theater out of it. A lot of it, as you know, as distraction from what's going on, with all the wars that we're leading, with all the genocide that we're funding. So I feel like the people in power who are the 1% benefits from the illegal immigration. Okay. So we all agreed on that one, right? But now, why is it they're putting this show up for us that they're trying to get rid of the people who are making them money? I believe half of it is a show, and the other half is the chaos of immigration that the United States has been trying to deal with for now, decades, which it has gotten worse and worse and worse because nobody addressed it. And the other part of it that, Sean, you have to be paying attention to is how to combat this propaganda that immigrants are taking my job. So I think this is your biggest challenge by far. We can say immigrants are great, immigrants are good, look at them, they're paying taxes. When it comes to, as you said, a lot of people are struggling, they don't have money, inflation is high, food is expensive, tariffs are kicking in, everything we used to buy is double now. Now they're taking my job. And again, that's propaganda because they're not taking our jobs. Those jobs, nobody will go do. Put it up. Right now, if you put any ad, we want people to go pick strawberries. How many people are going to apply?
Not many.
Not many.
Not many.
So it was it was a little video Nassim put up. It was just hilarious and sad at the same time. They literally put up an ad in a hospital for nurses to go and pick fruit as an incentive for them for their extracurriculum activities to get bonus for promotions. And it was,
Wait, what?
I'm
This is
not kidding
real?
you. Nasim, can you explain what it was? She's on, right?
She's muted.
Yeah, actually, you get there is a system in the healthcare system. I think other industries use it as well. You get, as Nadia explained, extracurricular. It's like a ladder system where you have to volunteer. They were not offering money. They were offering that nurses after
Yeah.
12-hour shift go and pick blueberries because we have all this massive supply. It's sitting there and we don't have enough labor. So yeah, I don't want to cut Nadia off, but what was sad was that the woman who was explaining it, this really amazing, hilarious Black woman, was saying, oh, first you got rid of all the farm workers, you want to pull them off the streets. Then you came and told Black people, go pick the fruit. And we're like, hell no. And then you came and told Medicare and Medi-Cal recipients to go pick them. And half of them are children and people with disabilities, so they're not going in the field. So go on, all you people who voted for this, lather up your sunscreen and put your hat on,
All
put
the
your
all
overalls.
the white people. Now
But it
put on
was,
your
what's sad
sunscreen.
is she was laughing about it. But what's really sad is that we as a society accept that a slave class has been picking our strawberries. We accept that. We're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
outraged about
No,
it.
that's a
We
really good
like our
point.
9-cent
Yeah,
head of
that's a
cabbage.
really good point.
Yep.
Yeah, that
There
point
is
is
a
not made up
really
enough.
ingrained problem with that.
Yeah.
That we expect that we don't want to pay that much, no matter how much these massive food farms are exploiting the labor. We are too, because we are paying abnormally low prices for our produce, and we are trashing half of it because of our
Yeah,
marketing.
I'm sorry.
And
I just have to interrupt and agree
yeah,
with you, Nassim, because this is a point I very rarely hear made, and it just drives me nuts. Like in this country, it feels like people feel like they're obligated to express their gratitude to this underpaid, exploited class,
Yeah.
and that's where it stops. That, okay,
I mean,
sorry,
think
go on.
about COVID, right? They were essential workers during that time,
Yes.
and now we just completely threw that out, of the book. Now it's just like, no, these people are taking our jobs. And I descend from farm workers. The border crossed us. We never crossed the border. We were in the US before it was made the US, So having those indigenous roots, right? It's a very hard subject for me. Because I've seen my family work consistently in the fields. I'm the first generation to actually not work in the fields. And that was due to the dream that they've been in place for generations for me to
Yeah.
have this. So I think that's also important too. And with technology coming in, like I'm also worried that a lot of our things are going to be picked by technology, right? Which is going to displace even more people. So those are things that, I just think about. But really good points, Nadia and Nassim.
Yeah, I just want to agree with, you could probably hear my kid, huh? I just want to agree with, sorry, I want to agree with something that Nadia was saying, which is that I think I'm agreeing with you. Like a lot of what the current administration is doing, to my mind, is theatrics
Yep.
as a way to satisfy the base, but it isn't just theatrics. There's also something else being accomplished. It's not really accomplishing deportation in large numbers. It's creating fear, and
Division. Yes.
it's
Yes.
helping maintain this system of an exploited underclass of workers.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
so I just want
Sean, this has been nothing new. This is what this country was built on. Italians and Irish. This
Yep.
happened. I watched a movie about that. It was literally a movie about this exact subject. It's how they play them against each other. Oh, you cutest. She's learning. So how did they exploit the Italians and Irish by they playing them against each other? Of they're gonna they need less to accomplish this job. If you're willing to match that, okay, we'll give that to you. So this is nothing new, but people don't understand this has been happening and it's nothing new, and they get all excited about it. Oh, they're taking my job. Listen, don't get fooled. But how do you communicate that? How do you get like kindly push it into your conversation that this, how do you divide the emotions from the fact? I mean, I get emotional. I say, well, are you going to go pick the fruits? Like literally, it gets very annoying to the point. And as Nassim said, the model of Europe versus us is the different point. They pay $6 for a head of lettuce.
Well, so yes, I agree. I think that as a campaign, a lot of what we may do is just deal with these horrifying images that people are seeing. We can delve into we can have a big write-up of our position on immigration, but I think what a lot of people are want to talk about is these ICE raids.
Right.
And we can see that public opinion is shifting, and suddenly the majority of America believes that immigration is a good thing, and that hadn't been true in January of this year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's really the argument that we need to be making right now. I think that as a campaign, we can probably just be focused on this carceral system. So okay, we've got 13 minutes left. Sorry, I'm suddenly taking on the MC position, Ashley. I apologize. But is there anyone that we haven't heard from that would like to bring forward an issue that hasn't been addressed? Or it could even be something that has been addressed, but it would be great if someone could bring up an idea that hasn't been addressed that they were hoping to hear addressed tonight. If not, you can hear my toddler babble. Oh my God.
Oh yes, Ned.
Yeah, so great conversations. I want to go back to the campaign and think of the campaign as a project. I want to think of it as a project plans. What are the goals? How are we going to achieve the goals? And I would start by setting up just a simple cheat sheet. What are the campaign programs? What are the problems that are available now, existing now, in the district, in California 19? I don't want to solve the world problems. I want to focus on what a congressional candidate can do in Congress. And how am I going to do that? What is it going to cost? How am I going to make it happen? Who's going to vote for it? It could be a great idea, but if your voter base, especially in diversified congressional districts, may end up not voting for it, and you end up losing, even though your ideas are great. What do you need to do to change the messaging so that you can get to win these people? I think a few pages is a good start just to strategically set the campaign. What are the counter arguments? How to counter argument Jimmy Panetta is existing program. This doesn't have to be a PhD thesis. It could be just a few pages, and it will set the strategy for the campaign. I'm frankly concerned about a lot of the things that I heard today. Not because I disagree with the spirit, but I think it just could cost votes, and eventually the campaign may not win. And our ultimate goal is for the campaign to win. If Sean doesn't win, none of these great ideas will see the light of day. It will be another great campaign, maybe achieved another percentage record for Green candidates. But if you're not in Congress, none of this could happen. So I go back and focus the campaign, and it's okay to start maybe the first couple of meetings as brainstorming, but eventually we want to see an articulate program, a responsible program, how are voters going to vote for it, something that people can look at and vote for. So I'm happy to work with the campaign to put a lot of that together. And like I mentioned, The Dougherty campaign in the Silicon Valley has a differential advantage over Panetta because the candidate is a techie, he's a Silicon Valley guy, and there's a lot in the Silicon Valley is the major economic engine, and I want to see a lot of programs that the campaign is proposing in terms of immigrations, how to reform immigration so that we can maximize the economic benefit for the Silicon Valley. There's a lot of ideas. We can talk about it later that could be part of the campaign programs. How is it going to be implemented? The economic impact, some basic analysis that can be done. Frankly, a lot of this stuff now can be done through AI tools. So I'm not asking for something that's too complicated. And once we set up this plan, we can execute. We really need to look at this as and those of you who work in corporations understand what I'm talking about. You need to look at this as a business plan. You have goals that you have to achieve, and you want to reverse engineer your plans and resources.
No, yeah, I agree. We need to come up with a plan. And we can address that in subsequent meetings. Is there anybody else? And I do agree that I mean the whole point of this town hall today is to talk about how the campaign is supposed to talk about this issue.
Yeah.
And I think that the way that we were just talking about this issue in this meeting probably would have been received by the general public much differently 6 or 8 months ago than it would now. Like we've seen a really big shift because people have seen the videos of the ICE raids, and that it's just like the videos the videos that they saw in Gaza have permanently shifted people's opinions towards Israel and towards Palestine. Like I think that it's also been radicalizing what people have seen happen recently. But I agree with your point that we need to be very careful and to not alienate people.
Yeah, and just to quickly add to 23.7% of Latinos are within California 19. Going with a message of, oh, I'm Sean and I work in Silicon Valley could also backfire on us because Silicon Valley is known for displacement, especially in California District 19. They're coming over, buying up properties over here and displacing a big majority further into California District 19. So I think that's a great perspective, Ned, but I think also looking at demographics, looking at labor within the area, and also messaging about corporate, because I know if Sean goes with that message, he's going to lose a big chunk of people because we know what Silicon Valley is capable of in California District 19. So just wanted to put that out there.
Just a quick suggestion that I think it would be really awesome. I know Gabe's talked about it, and you, Sean, you have talked about it. It would be really great to see eventually on your website a type of a resource place where communities can come together and support people who are being victimized by ICE and by, resources for know your rights resources and even legal resources. It's actually that part of becoming a resource for people in the community is important, but also you will be providing resources for people like me and people like your volunteers who are trying to help within their own community, educate people, support people, and be be on call. I know, Gabe, you talked about being like getting up at 4 a.m. and being there when you knew ICE was going to show up. That's huge, not just from a legal and physical perspective. It is amazing emotional support for people who are being victimized, who may feel like they're alone and there's nobody who's going to come to their rescue.
Yes, thank you for that. And I'll share some with the campaign to distribute from my contacts like YAR and Monterey Solidarity, who are putting out these pamphlets for people. So I'll make sure that we get that as well.
Thank you, Nasim.
Sorry, just a very quick reminder.
Yes.
I put that funny video in the chat. Please
Oh,
watch
thank you.
it. laugh at it because I laugh my head off. And then I had to stop myself and ask myself, no, this is actually a really sad statement on the way we live our lives. So yeah, just check it out. It's really funny.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so if we have any other questions, I think we'll just move into maybe some final thoughts from Gabe and Sean and your son there, Sean.
I vote for Sean's son to give the final word.
He's going to tell you that right now he's doing the mail. He's pushing all the papers off my desk.
Oh, perfect.
But,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think my final, thoughts on this is we need to keep having this discussion. It's super important. We need to get different coalitions together to talk about it, right? Because I see it differently than somebody else who may have protected status, right? Like a Cuban American who has refugee status, and that's what I tell people about like the Latino population. We may be categorized as this whole pie, but each slices of those pie have a different flavor in them. So I think acknowledging that and having more discussions with people where immigration impacts them, not just the Latino community, but every community who's feeling the pressure of ICE right now. So that would be my final thought.
Well, I certainly agree with that, Gabe. I know that even within our own coalition, we know that there are people who have some really strong disagreements on immigration and work visas, for example. So I would love to bring in some of those voices and have a respectful debate, even.
Yeah.
So I would love to have that. But I also want to say in closing, the people, the public, the American public has dramatically shifted its opinion on immigration since the time that Trump has elected, because even before they saw the ICE raids, you saw survey data that was showing that Americans, a majority of Americans support. I'm so sorry. Can you please get him? Can you please get him? Okay, so even before Trump implemented his ICE raids, a majority of Americans said they supported mass deportations. But then when you started asking them about the specific tactics that would have to be employed to achieve mass deportation, they didn't support it. So it's like people didn't really understand what Trump was calling for, but now they do. And so I don't think we have to be. I think we could be pretty open about our opposition to these raids and about the detention centers. And we don't need to play like Jimmy Panetta does, where he tries to have it both ways. I think we can come down clearly on one side of this. And I think that's actually going to help us get votes because it's going to differentiate us from Jimmy Panetta. But that's my closing thought. And I think we're at time. Good night. Bye.